Okay, let me see here. Get a couple of things into position. Alrighty. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Pro Wrestling Talk here live on the U to the Tube, brought to you by Blitzball Champ Gaming. I'm your host for the evening, Blitzball Champ Jason Ingram. It's good to be back here on a Saturday evening. Going to talk some pro wrestling. So tonight, going to do a quick recap of the current Stardom 5-Star Grand Prix standings. We're going to talk a little bit about Jonathan Coachman, Adam Cole, and do the usual recaps on AEW and WWE as well. So probably not a whole lot tonight, but still going to try to make it good and make it informative. So anyway, let's first talk Stardom and the 5-Star Grand Prix. Now, first off, I wanted to acknowledge that Unagi Sayaka had another successful Future of Stardom championship defense as she defended against newcomer Waka Tsukiyama, which this was her first match. So her first match in Stardom is for the Future of Stardom championship. But Unagi Sayaka was able to get the victory. And I just thought it was interesting because this was the same Waka Tsukiyama that as she was making her introduction, Unagi Sayaka came out and challenged her and put her Future of Stardom title on the line against her. So what a way for her to begin her career in Stardom with a title match. And even though she didn't win, hope to see more of her in action ASAP. Also, it has been announced that the upcoming... Oh, before I get to that, Mai Sakurai went for her 5th Stardom challenge as she went up against Shuri, but Shuri was able to make her tap out. So she's at number 5, and I believe she still has a couple of more remaining. So she's not quite done yet, but she's still getting her matches in, and she's been doing really well in these matches. So let's not sleep on Mai Sakurai. She might not have a victory yet, but I'm sure at some point she'll get a victory before Lady C gets a victory. At least that's what I'm predicting. But we'll see. But lately, her matches have been really good. Now, during the 5-Star Grand Prix, after one of Koguma's matches, Hazuki has challenged Koguma to be her opponent for her return match. And it has been decided that that return match will take place at the Osaka-jo Hall on October 9th for the 10th anniversary of the Osaka Dream Cinderella, which this is also where the grand finals of the 5-Star Grand Prix. Yeah, 10th anniversary grand final of the Osaka Dream Cinderella at the Osaka-jo Hall. Hazuki will have her return match against Koguma. And apparently it's been noted that this is their first face-off in 6 years and 7 months, which the last time that these two have wrestled was back in March of 2015. So it's been a long time. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. You know, it wasn't that long ago that Koguma returned to Stardom. You know, Koguma is a former high-speed champion. And, of course, so is Hazuki. One of the best high-speed champions. So this should be good. This should be really good. And looking forward to how they continue to build up this event come October 9th. Unfortunately, due to dealing with some some rehabilitation of her neck, Giulia will miss the rest of the 5-star Grand Prix. It looks like she re-aggravated her neck. She's had it taped up. She's had like a pack on it for a while, and it looks like she re-aggravated it and is going to be taking time to go through the proper physical therapy and proper recovery. So with that being said, she unfortunately will miss the rest of the 5-star Grand Prix. So for the rest of her matches, her opponents will get buys and will get a free 2 points. So really, really tough break for Giulia, but I think she did the right thing. I mean, neck injuries are no joke. So it's just really important that she takes the necessary time to rehab and to fully recover, because neck injuries are no joke. So unfortunately, she will miss the rest of the 5-star Grand Prix. With that being said, let's get into the standings. The current standings of the Stardom 5-star Grand Prix. So starting with the Red Stars, the Red Block. So right now at the bottom with 2 points is Saki Kashima, she's 1-3. So she has a victory over Giulia and losses to Momo Watanabe, Starlight Kid, and Mina Shirakawa. Mina Shirakawa, Koguma, and Fukiken Death, all three of these ladies are tied at 4 points. So Fukiken Death is 2-3 with a victory over Himeka, the free buy against Giulia. And she has losses to Mina Shirakawa, Starlight Kid, and Momo Watanabe. Koguma, she's 2-1 with victories over Starlight Kid and Natsupoi, and a loss to Giulia. And Mina Shirakawa, she is 2-3 with victories over Fukiken Death and Saki Kashima, but losses to Starlight Kid, Himeka, and Giulia. We have a 4-way tie with 6 points, which are Momo Watanabe, Giulia, Mayu Iwatani, and Himeka. So Himeka is 3-2 with victories over Mina Shirakawa and Natsupoi and the bye from Giulia, and losses to Fukiken Death and Mayu Iwatani. Mayu Iwatani, she is 3-1 with victories over Giulia, Himeka, and Natsupoi, but a loss to Momo Watanabe. Giulia. Now, Giulia, like I said, she's out of the 5-star Grand Prix, so she ends up finishing at 3-4. So she has victories. She ended up with victories over Starlight Kid, Koguma, and Mina Shirakawa. She has the loss to Mayu Iwatani, and then, of course, the rest will be buys since she's out of the 5-star Grand Prix. So, and there's no way that she can win it, even at 6 points. But still, she ended up getting 6 points. And then Momo Watanabe is 3-1 with victories over Mayu Iwatani, Fukiken Death, and Saki Kashima, but a loss to Natsupoi. And at the top, both tied at 7, are Natsupoi and Starlight Kid. So Natsupoi, she is 3-1. So she has victories over Momo Watanabe, Fukiken Death, and she has the bye over Giulia. She has losses to Mayu Iwatani, Himeka, Koguma, and has a draw with Starlight Kid. And then the other lady with 7 points is Starlight Kid, which she is 3-2-1 with victories over Mina Shirakawa, Saki Kashima, Fukigen Death, and she has losses to Giulia, Koguma, and a draw with Natsupoi. So Starlight Kid and Natsupoi are at the top, tied at 7, but still a lot more 5-star Grand Prix left. Now let's go over to the Blue Stars. So sitting at the bottom, still with 0 points, is Ruoka. Poor Ruoka. She is 0-4. No wins and losses to Tam Nakano, Saya Kamatani, Maika, and Konami. Yeah, we all know she might not even get a win in this tournament. She might not even get a win. Azumi still only with 2 points, which Azumi is 1-2. Victory over Shirley, but losses to Maika and Unagi Sayaka. Takumi Iroha has 4 points. She is 2-1 with victories over Tam Nakano, Maika, and a loss to Konami. Tied, we have a 3-way tie with 5 points. Utami Hayashishita, Shuri, and Unagi Sayaka. So Utami Hayashishita is 2-1-1. So she has victories over Saya Kamatani and Unagi Sayaka, a loss to Maika, and a draw with Shuri. Why am I not surprised? Shuri, she is 2-2-1. She has victories over Maika and Saya Kamatani, but losses to Konami and Azumi, and the draw with Utami Hayashishita. And we got Unagi Sayaka. She is 2-2-1. She has victories over Azumi and Tam Nakano, losses to Utami Hayashishita and Konami, and a draw with Maika. All right, we have a 2-way tie with 6 points, both Saya Kamatani and Tam Nakano. The Golden Phoenix, Saya Kamatani, she is 3-2 with victories over Tam Nakano, Konami, and Ruoka, but losses to Utami Hayashishita and Shuri. So Saya Kamatani looking very strong. And then Tam Nakano, she's 3-3. So she has victories over Maika, Konami, and Ruoka, but losses to Unagi Sayaka, Saya Kamatani, and Takumi Iroha. All right, standing in second place with 7 points is Maika. Maika is 3-3-1 with victories over Utami Hayashishita, Azumi, and Ruoka, but losses to Shuri, Tam Nakano, and Takumi Iroha, and a draw with Unagi Sayaka. And right now, in first place on the Blue Stars, in the lead with 8 points, is Konami, the submission sniper. Konami, she is 4-2 with victories over Shuri, Ruoka, Unagi Sayaka, and Takumi Iroha, and losses to Saya Kamatani and Tam Nakano. So, yeah, she's 4-2. So Konami definitely is showing that she is a threat to the 5-star Grand Prix. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if she won. She's very capable of winning, very capable. But it's still close. You know, there's still plenty of matches left. And it's still close. You know, there's still, Maika has a good chance. Natsupoi, Starlight Kid, Momo Watanabe. We got a lot of ladies with 6 points and even with 5 points. I think it's going to be close. It's going to be close. But that concludes the coverage for the 5-star Grand Prix for Stardom. Okay, not really a whole lot to talk about with New Japan Pro Wrestling, but just know that in a week we got the G1 Climax 31 getting ready to begin. So look forward to that. And then, of course, near the end of September, we got NJPW Strong's Autumn Attack. So they've been building up the card for that. As it gets closer, I'll do a preview of the card. So definitely look forward to that. And that's going to be 2 nights. That's going to be 2 nights, the 25th and the 26th. So definitely look forward to that. It's going to be a lot of action there. A lot of action. Okay. So moving on to AEW. Looking at the Dynamite recap. Of course, this was the homecoming for Jon Moxley and also for Brian Pillman Jr. as well. But the main headline was Jon Moxley, as he was actually in the main event this past Wednesday's Dynamite. So starting off, we had the opening match as Malachi Black versus the Natural Dustin Rhodes. And it was actually a pretty decent match. Dustin Rhodes definitely gave Malachi Black a good fight. And, too bad that it came down to a exposed turnbuckle to kind of play into the mix. But then Malachi Black eventually hit the Black Mass, or I wonder what they're going to call that in AEW, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be called something different than Black Mass, but everybody right now knows it as Black Mass. But hit Dustin Rhodes, was able to get the pin, but yeah. And not to mention, there was a moment where Malachi Black even pulled one of Cody Rhodes' boots from under the ring, and to just pretty much kind of get in Dustin Rhodes' head, play some mind games with that boot. But of course, this is all eventually leading up to Cody Rhodes having a return match against Malachi Black. So this is really what this is building up to. But he took out Big Brother Dustin, but not surprised. They're going to continue to get Malachi strong. And, do we see Cody Rhodes dethroning him in his return? I don't know. That's debatable. That's debatable. Then CM Punk came out, got on the mic, and pretty much praised, all that took place at AEW, All Out, lifted up, Ruby Soho, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, pretty much praised a lot of folks. Darby Allin, Sting, and got interrupted by Taz. Now, of course, they have a lot of history. They go way back. But, I mean, this wasn't really what I had in mind for the next direction for CM Punk, but I don't know. CM Punk taking on Team Taz, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Taz was pretty upset, don't ever mention Team Taz and whatnot. But, yeah, it pretty much led to CM Punk was like, hey, send your boys. Send Ricky Starks, send Hook, send Powerhouse Hobbs, And, of course, he did the, beat me if you can, survive if I let you, quote. So, I mean, it looks like a feud is brewing between CM Punk and Team Taz. Not what I had in mind, but it should be interesting. Now, of course, there was a backstage segment with Ruby Soho and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Jamie Hayter, and Rebel. And of course, you know, she fired a shot towards Ruby Soho. You know, why don't you go run away back to catering? That's where you've been, you know, for most of your career. So I like the verbal sparring there. But definitely that would eventually lead to, of course, Ruby Soho ended up having a trios match teaming up with, what was it? Riho and Chris Statlander. So we got that to look forward to on Rampage, which I'll go over that on Rampage. But I like the verbal sparring. It was really good. But anyway, continuing forward, you had Dante Martin going up against Powerhouse Hobbs with Hook, which, I mean, it was really sad that Hook had to provide a distraction in order for Powerhouse Hobbs to really get some sort of advantage. I mean, even though Dante Martin took to the skies and flew over Hook, I just think it's a bummer that there was even any type of interference on Will Hobbs' behalf, being, you know, it's Powerhouse Hobbs going up against Dante Martin. No offense to Dante Martin, but it's like, you know, doesn't seem much of a powerhouse, you know, if he has to have distractions and help. I'm just saying. But Powerhouse Hobbs did get the victory. Hit just a spine buster to get the victory. It's kind of a bummer. I like Dante Martin. Top flight. But it sucked that he had to eat that pin. And of course, had more jaw-jacking from Dan Lambert, along with Scorpio Sky and All Ego Ethan Page. I mean, I really don't like this combination, but Dan Lambert considers them as the tough guys. The tough guys. So I don't know what this is going to end up leading to, but I'm sure we're going to hear more from him each week on AEW. So, yeah. And of course, you have Matt Hardy threatening to cut Orange Cassidy's hair, which not really what I had in mind, but apparently that's the thing now. Matt Hardy looking to cut Orange Cassidy's hair. I guess shave him bald. But of course, Orange Cassidy's like, whatever. You want to shave my head? Whatever. But MJF came out, got in the ring, and pretty much, you know, talked smack about the city of Cincinnati. And of course, Brian Pillman Jr. came out because, you know, it's in his hometown, Cincinnati, Ohio. And of course, MJF took it too far, started talking about Pillman's family, mocking Linda and Brian Pillman's daughter as well. And of course, Brian Pillman Jr. came rushing to the ring, started to beat down on MJF. But of course, you know, the numbers were too much at first. But, you know, then Jon Moxley came out and, you know, I just really, or actually, I'm sorry, Griff Garrison, his partner, his Varsity Blondes partner, came out. There was a time on Rampage you saw Brian Pillman and Jon Moxley, which I'll get to that. But, you know, I wouldn't have thought it would have taken long for Brian Pillman Jr. to really, like, I think the way they built up him getting upset and just attacking MJF, just, you would have thought it would have happened a lot quicker. Or at least that's how I feel about it. But MJF is full on heel. I mean, seriously, full on heel. And he may be very offensive in his words because a lot of the stuff he said was pretty blatant and offensive. But he's living out his heel role. And that's why he's a great heel. And I think he has the potential to be the top heel in AEW if he keeps up what he's doing. I really believe that. But MJF was mocking Brian Pillman's family. And then, Brian Pillman Jr. eventually charged at MJF. But the numbers game, because, Wardlow was there. Too much for him. Griff Garrison came out. But still wasn't enough as he got decked in the face by MJF, who was wearing the diamond ring. He decked him with the diamond ring. But, yeah. Was kind of a bummer. But, hey, as it leads to Rampage, he does, get a little bit of revenge, so to speak. But moving on, we had Ruby Soho make her Dynamite debut going up against Jamie Hayter. And it was a good match. It was definitely a really good match. And Ruby Soho was able to get the victory after that riot kick. And of course, Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Rebel started beating down on Ruby Soho. But then Riho and Chris Statlander ended up even in the odds. Riho came out first, but she got overwhelmed. But then Chris Statlander was, was who made it even. And this pretty much set up the trios match for Rampage, which I'll get into later. We had a trios match between the Dark Order's Evil Uno, John Silver, and Stu Grayson going up against the Pinnacle's FTR and Shawn Spears. Now, things were going pretty well at first for Dark Order until it got to the point where after the match, Dark Order started fighting with each other. And, there was some miscommunications towards the end of the match, but, the Dark Order members began to fight back and forth, and it took Anna Jay and Ty Conti coming out to try to break things up and, restore order, but they were just pretty much disappointed. But it's a split is incoming. It's about to happen. Like, maybe give it another week, maybe 2 weeks. A split within the Dark Order is coming. It's coming. So it's just a matter of time. I'd say give it 1 to 2 more weeks. It's coming. So we'll see how it goes. And then we had a backstage segment with Tully Blanchard. Apparently, it's going to be going one-on-one with Sting. And this is next week, but that should be interesting. Tully Blanchard versus Sting. That should be really interesting. But yeah. Brian Pillman has plans to face MJF on Dynamite, which I believe next week, but got interrupted by the Acclaimed. And pretty much it's been said that Brian Pillman has a match against Max Caster on Rampage. All right. Next up, we had a segment, of course, with the Elite. Everybody in the Elite. And, of course, Adam Cole. They brought out Adam Cole, and he stood by with the folks of Elite. And, of course, he made things clear. He's back with the Elite, and talked about how he's going to be making his debut next week, and pretty much you'll see how elite I am once you see me debut. And of course, Bryan Danielson came out later on during the interview, and of course got the mic and was like, do you want to see Bryan Danielson fight Kenny Omega? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, that match is going to be gold. Whenever that does happen, that match is going to be gold. I mean, two of the best in the world. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, going up against Kenny Omega. That match, whenever that's going to happen, is going to be gold. And he went in. I'm going to kick your head off. I'm the greatest wrestler. You are not on my level. And those were Bryan Danielson's words to Kenny Omega. You are not on my level. And, of course, they ended up brawling for a bit. And then the numbers game got the best of Bryan Danielson until Frankie Kazarian and Christian and, of course, Jurassic Express came out to even the odds. So I tell you, I am looking very forward to that match. Looking so forward to that match. And then we had the main event, the homecoming. Jon Moxley taking on the King, Minoru Suzuki. Now, here's where things went downhill. Minoru Suzuki's entrance was short. They didn't even have the segment where they allowed the fans to cheer the Kaze Ninare from his theme. They didn't even let him get in the ring. It was just, he was coming down the entrance ramp and then bam, straight to Wild Thing. So AEW really dropped the ball on Minoru Suzuki's entrance. They really dropped the ball on that. Like, you got to let that play when you have Minoru Suzuki wrestling. That's a must. So hopefully AEW will learn from that mistake. Secondly, the match did not last as long as I had hoped for. And it really... See, the picture-in-pictures, I'm not a fan of the pictures-in-pictures, commercial breaks. Like, I really wish they would do without those. Like, it just takes... Especially, okay, if they're going to do those, don't allow them for the main event. Just, it really hurts the effects of the match, if you ask me. And it clearly did that here. And of course, Minoru Suzuki got busted open above his eye. Apparently, he had to get some stitches afterwards, but Jon Moxley hit a paradigm shift, was able to get the victory over Minoru Suzuki. I was really surprised. I was really surprised. I really feel like the match should have been longer. And already the effects of it wasn't as big as it could have been. I mean, you already had the cut entrance for Minoru Suzuki, and the match wasn't really that long. Plus, the picture-in-picture commercial breaks. I understand if they got to have them, but I really feel like they should start making an exception and just don't do them for main events. Don't do them for main events. So yeah. What's up, Certified Hustler? Oh yeah, I was gonna get into that, but yes, that is true. I'm actually gonna get into that once I get into Rampage. So Rampage. Now, of course, this also was in Cincinnati. And what they had for Rampage, so they had the match that was originally supposed to be at All Out, Andrade El Idolo versus Pac. They actually opened up with this match. I thought this match was going to be the main event, but they opened up with this match. Like, I was really surprised. They actually had Max Caster versus Brian Pillman Jr. as the main event. I was really surprised with that. Like, I would have flip-flopped those. But, I mean, I get it because they're still in Cincinnati. So, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense. But we had a great opening match between Pac and Andrade El Idolo. And as great as it was, the way it ended was just... He got hit. Pac got hit. There was the distraction. And then Chavo hit him with the tablet. Just hit him with the tablet. Like, really? Hit him with the tablet. It was either I wasn't sure if it was a tablet or an iPad or what, but hit him with a tablet. And that's how Andrade was able to roll up Pac for the pin, because he had him in the brutalizer. And what was interesting was after the match, it seemed like Chavo, was like, yeah, you won and such, and got decked by Andrade. And I was just like, what? Now, Certified Hustler, you were saying Andrade turned on Chavo because Ric Flair is about to show up as Andrade's special advisor. That's interesting, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, being that, Ric Flair is the father of Charlotte Flair, who Andrade is engaged to. So that doesn't surprise me. But it's shocking, because you would think Andrade would do something like that to Chavo Guerrero, like after a loss instead of after a victory. You know what I mean? Like, that's weird to me. I would have thought he would turn on him after a loss, not after a victory. But apparently, I guess Andrade just flat out didn't like the way that went down. I guess he didn't want to win like that. But I just... And to make matters worse, Lucha Bros came down and super kicked Chavo and then brought him into the ring, and Pac put the brutalizer on Chavo Guerrero Jr. I was like, dang. Poor Chavo. Like, why do they have to do all that? I mean, it's already bad enough that Andrade turned on him, but then the Lucha Bros, the new AEW Tag Team Champions, just added insult to injury and just decked them with dual super kicks and then finish them off with a brutalizer. I'm just like, geez. Well, that relationship is over for Chavo Guerrero. Dang, yeah. They also did a video montage for Adam Cole and for the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. And, I'm looking forward to Adam Cole's debut this coming Dynamite. That should be really good. We had the trios match, the ladies trios match. We had Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, the AEW Women's Champion, Jamie Hayter, and Rebel going up against Chris Statlander, Ruby Soho, and Riho. And I have to say, each of these ladies got a good amount of action in this match. I was very pleased. And, it was just back and forth. But the faces ended up getting the victory. And, Chris Statlander looked really good in this match. So did Riho. And Riho has been out quite a bit before coming back into the mix of things. So it's really good to see Riho back in the action consistently. I know she just got back on to Dark and Dark Elevation, so this is good. But Ruby Soho was able to get the victory, hit the riot kick on Rebel, which I wonder what they're going to call that now that she's in AEW, but got the victory for the team. So Ruby Soho, Riho, and Chris Statlander standing tall after a great trios match. And then we had the main event, Max Caster going up against hometown Cincinnati Bengal, Flying Brian Pillman Jr. And I have to say, he was definitely on fire in this match. And I thought it was just really, really sweet that he was able to get the victory hitting a springboard flying clothesline, just like his father did oh so well, and was able to get the victory over Max Caster. And then, of course, Anthony Bowens, Max Caster had to do the beat down, the double team. But then out comes Jon Moxley to save the day, hit a couple of paradigm shifts, and stood tall with his fellow Cincinnati Bengal, Flying Brian Pillman Jr., and they celebrated there in Cincinnati as the show went to a close. So I can understand why that was the main event. You know, just after really thinking about it, I can understand why that was the main event. But that was a good Rampage. That was actually a really good episode of Rampage. So I had no complaints. Now, before I get into the WWE recap, there's two things I wanted to talk about that I thought were pretty crazy. So first up, apparently this has to do with Adam Cole. So apparently WWE or Vince McMahon, I'll just say Vince McMahon, let's keep it real. Vince McMahon apparently had a plan to bring Adam Cole to the main roster to be a heel manager for Keith Lee? Like, what? Why? Like, Vince, dude, you're gonna bring up one of the hottest stars from NXT to the main roster to be a manager? Are you that out of touch? I mean, I know you out of touch, but come on, Vinnie Mac. And this is the same guy that's going to be helping produce NXT with Bruce Pritchard coming up. Hope y'all are looking forward to that, because I'm not. But yeah, just crazy. And then Jonathan Coachman apparently got on a podcast and he shared about a situation where he stood up to Vince McMahon and got punished for it. I pulled up the article, and this was the story that he was talking about. Apparently, it had to do with Jonathan Coachman missed a tribute to the troops, and the reason why he missed it was because his first child was born at the time. At the same time all this was going on, his first child was born, so he wanted to be there for his first child. But yeah, let me actually get into the stuff that he said. So this was his quotes. This was his story that Jonathan Coachman shared. Now we have to remember, Jonathan Coachman was an interviewer. He's done commentating. Like, he's done Sunday Night Heat. He's done so much from like 1998 to like 2006 or 7, or actually 2008. So he's been a part of WWE for a long time. So check this out. This was Jonathan Coachman's quote. All right, this is what he said. Said, this is a story that I've never told. I actually did do it, as in stand up to Vince McMahon and say no. He says, and I'm a little pissed about it, to be honest with you. So here's what happens. This is what he said. Back in 04, 05, the years are blurry, but that's when we were doing our shows in Afghanistan. And it was supposed to be that if you didn't want to go, you didn't have to. So if you didn't want to go, you didn't have to. Supposed to be completely up to you, because we're going into a war zone and they couldn't make you do it. That's what they told us, which is understandable because, I mean, it's Afghanistan. I mean, come on, it's obvious. Continuing on, he says, so my first child was about to be born 6 months after that. So my wife at the time, she, and rightfully so, didn't want me going into the middle of a war zone. Understandable. So I told the people who were setting it up at WWE, I said, listen, I'm not going. At that point, I had never said no to Vince once in my career, not for anything. So they thought I was joking. Well, to travel to Afghanistan, you had to put your name on a list with the Pentagon and all the military and all that, to get clearance. And so I showed up to the building the day that we were supposed to leave in Charleston, South Carolina. And they came out and asked for my bags. I said, I told you I wasn't going. They said, I thought you were kidding. I said, I'm not kidding about that. So I thought it was cool. At the last minute, they were able to get someone because you can only take 18 people. That's why it was so important. You can only take 18 and 12 crew guys, 30 people total. All right, continuing on, he says, so the next week I was down doing commentary, and there's always been a culture of, I don't want to use the word hazing because I didn't get hazed. That wasn't this, he began. Punishment, perhaps? But when the show was over, one of the referees, I can't remember who it was, Undertaker was ending the show, and he came over and said, you need to go hit the Undertaker from behind. I said, why? He was like, that's just what they're telling me. So basically, as punishment for not going to Afghanistan, I got beat up by the Undertaker. Then they hit Batista's music, and he came down and he finished the job. As I'm getting my A kicked, I'm thinking, is this really worth it? I've done everything I could possibly do, and I'm still getting my A handed to me because I refused to go to a war zone for the second time. I went the year before, so it's not like I said no. I mean, it was just crazy. And then he finished up by saying this. But the one thing about Vince that I have taken as a positive is that he has this incredible ability to forget what just happened the week before. So you can be in a knockdown, drag-out, screaming fight with him that a lot of people have done, and then you think, oh my goodness, my job's on the line, or they're not going to keep me, or they're going to fire me, whatever the case might be. Then you see him the next week, and he's like, hey, pal, how are you doing? That's kind of how he is. End quotes. All Jonathan Coachman's words that he shared on this recent podcast. So pretty much, because he refused to go to Afghanistan, he was set up to get beat down by The Undertaker and Batista. Dang. And the sad thing about it is, all because of the one time, I guess that's all it took, was one time for him to say no. That's all it took, was one time. He says no to Vince. Bam. You're punished. It's sad. It's really, really sad. And I'll share that article in the description box for this, so that everybody can see it. But it's sad. It's really sad that he had to go through that. So, yeah. Now, going into the weekly stuff for WWE. So starting out with with Raw, which I only caught half of Raw because I went out to dinner with some friends. But from what I've been told, it's a good thing that I missed Raw. So apparently, started off, there's a challenge for between Randy Orton and Bobby Lashley. They're going to face off each other. They're going to face off against each other at Extreme Rules with the WWE title on the line. So that was the first order of business, apparently. And then they had a tag team turmoil match, which pretty much lasted a big portion of this Raw because they had to stop it at one point and then resume it later. But they had tag team turmoil to determine who would be the new number one contenders to go up against Randy Orton and Matt Riddle for the Raw tag titles. So first you had the New Day and the Viking Raiders. New Day beat the Viking Raiders. And then New Day beat Jinder Mahal and Veer. And then the New Day beat the Lucha House Party. So New Day's on a roll. New Day has been on a roll. Then they beat Mason T-Bar. And then afterwards, Mason T-Bar, after they officially lost, beat down the New Day more to the point where Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce had to stop and postpone tag team turmoil and resume it later on in the night. So that's just crazy. Sheamus ends up rolling up Drew McIntyre, which, oh man, that was crazy. But because of this, Sheamus has earned the right to get a rematch against Damian Priest at Extreme Rules for the United States Championship. And then the team of Nikki ASH and Rhea Ripley, oh God, not only went up against Tamina and Natalya, but defeated Tamina and Natalya. So I'm guessing they're going to get a tag title shot, but is it me or does it seem like lately Natalya and Tamina have been losing matches, whether it's singles or tag team matches? And they're the champs. They're the women's tag team champions. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Like doing this whole like championship championship contender matches, like this is dumb. It's making the champions look weak because you're having your champions lose in non-title matches and then they beat you in order to earn the title match. They don't win a number one contenders match to get the title shot. No, they beat the champions to earn the title shot. It's such a dumb concept. And then Karrion Kross beat John Morrison. So Johnny Drip Drip went up against Karrion Kross and ate the cross jacket. I mean, he had him on Moist TV as well. And it seemed like all was cool, but Karrion Kross just kept mentioning the fact that he was going to take him out. And he was going to make him fall and pray. And that's what he did. So that's 2 back-to-back weeks that Morrison has lost. Lost to Karrion Kross, lost to Omos. It's like, dang. I mean, it's already bad enough The Miz is avoiding him. But no, he just took 2 back-to-back losses. It's like, what the heck? I don't know. I don't know. Then we had Charlotte Flair versus Nia Jax again, but this was for the Raw Women's title, and of course, Charlotte was able to get the victory, and Shayna Baszler was a big part that kind of helped lead Charlotte to victory. And it's interesting because she had mentioned before the match, would Nia be a champion or would she end up choking? And she definitely made it apparent that she was not going to be a champion with the distraction. And I hope that now this